What's going on, Ronan? This video was inspired by the Ginger Gaming Radio podcast, in which the host Brian, aka Ginger Prime, says that he plays Final Fantasy XIV as a Final Fantasy game first, with the MMO underneath. And when somebody kind of gave him a weird look, he was like, well, do you see any other MMOs with 4-player dungeons? This is in reference to Final Fantasy having being known in the single-player titles for just having 4-player party systems. This is an okay response, I think, for the game. This is not what I had an issue with, but it did make me think about the other creators when they talk about Final Fantasy XIV, how some may call it just a multiplayer online game instead of the massive multiplayer online game, or MMO RPG versus an MO. So if you don't know, MMORPG stands for Massive Multiplayer Online Role-Playing Game. No one can argue that Final Fantasy XIV is not an RPG. Final Fantasy is the RPG. So when they speak on this, they're just talking about the massive part of MMO, claiming that it's just an MO, not an MMO, based on their experiences in other games like Warcraft. If you look at games like Warcraft, where the world is more unified, and there is no instant areas aside from dungeons, and then you compare that to Final Fantasy XIV, 14's world seems a bit small. I believe that massive is more than just how many people can fit on a zone or on a screen. It's a form of massive, but it's not the end-all, be-all. We could say that the community is massive, but then people will just draw back to Fortnite, so we may talk on that a little bit later. Massive in the instance of 14 can also be the lore of the game. When we come into ARR, it is at the 7th Umbral Calamity, and just after the 7th Umbral Calamity, and we're going into the 8th, which is like a few years after the 7th, trying to prevent that from happening. But the other 6 calamities happened thousands of years in the past, and we have information, bits and pieces of all that information that will happen in the past in parts of the game. And we see some remnants of other societies like Thavnarian onions and New World clothing and Rajat hand coins that pop up every now and then that allude to something more and greater in the world than what we see at first glance. As far as the community goes, 14's is definitely massive, with over 20 million players around the world. The limitations on instant areas are only because of old game engines and hardware limitations. And we still have the ability to interact in-game with thousands of players every day from our own servers, even can visit other servers and interact with those players, and around the world even. But the community has found a way to extend itself outside the game, with people taking their role-playing characters and creating Twitter accounts for them, and then interacting with other RPers with Twitter accounts with that character, as that character. As the MMO genre continues to grow, we are going to see more games come and break the norm of what people consider MMOs. We are already seeing it with games like the Dodge Combat New World, the Diablo-style Lost Ark, the JRPG turn-based style Broken Ranks, and the social MMO of Pelia. Each type won't be for everyone, and that's okay. But this is how a genre grows to be more than the same copy-pasta formula that we've seen when WoW was at the top. So what do you guys think? Do you guys think that Final Fantasy XIV is a MMO, or are you just thinking it's an MMO or an MO? Let me know in the comments, and I will see you guys in the next video. Thanks for watching. Peace.